Now, with the number of gender-based violence cases involving Kenyan athletes on the rise, the government of Kenya, together with relevant sporting bodies like Athletics Kenya and the International Olympics Committee, have taken steps to eradicate the vice. As part of their joint initiative, Kenya's Sports Ministry launched a Gender Protection and Implementation Committee, while Athletics Kenya have begun training officials on how to better protect athletes. During his visit to Kenya in October, the IOC President Thomas Bach also pleaded with relevant authorities to set up mechanisms at grassroots levels, saying this would be a critical step towards achieving a gender-based violence-free sporting environment in which everyone would be safe.
Safeguarding is something you cannot do from the top. Safeguarding has to build bottom up. We want to do this by establishing, first of all, some regional hubs, which then, would serve as a partner and can be addressed by athletes and members of the Olympic movement at large in a certain cultural area.
We started a program that went around all over the country to figure out what is happening, and we talked to athletes from every part of the nation, collect views, information on how AK can assist, and of course we have that information. As a result of Chapter debt, the government of Kenya also came on board. There is a program that is being worked now, and I'm sure that as a result of the continued meetings with athletes, the government will come with a policy on how to safeguard and protect the women athletes.
And for more on gender-based violence in sport, we are joined by sports lawyer Sarah Ochwada live here in Nairobi. Sarah, is it that GBV, particularly in East Africa and here in Kenya especially, increased, or has the reporting about it increased?
At the moment, we're not seeing all the data from day to day, so we don't know exactly how many cases are reported, whether it's with the authorities or with those who are supporting the victims. But what we are seeing is increase in media visibility and increase in discourse on social media, which is helping to amplify what's happening. And this is due to the high-profile nature of the victims who have been involved.
Well, there are also men suffering from GBV. How do we sensitize the society that it affects all genders, that it is not gender neutral?
Well, for men, it's a lot more difficult for them to come out and report any aspect of gender-based violence or even sexual violence because of the stigma involved. An example would be the cases of the Gabon players who are forced into sodomy acts or who are taken advantage of by their trainers. It took very many years for some of them to come and say, hey, we had a problem in this area. So you can only imagine where an issue in athletics might come up and there's gender-based violence, but there's no support for the victims, whether they're women, and there's even less support for victims if they're male.
Now, as a lawyer who's dealt with some of these cases, do you believe that the existing legal framework gives enough support to victims, and what can be done to enhance it?
Well, we started a process of trying to implement structures once we learned of Agnes Tirop's death. There was a bit of a lull up until we had the recent death of Rebecca Cheptegei. At the moment, our legal policies and structures are not enough, although we are making progress, whether it's through the authorities within the police stations who are taking on cases with a lot more sensitivity. They have a desk with an officer who listens to female cases and who is a female, but also the judiciary has come on board and said we're going to come up with a sexual offenders registry, and now it's up to the sports, the private side of sports to come together with the public side of the law and make sure these registers and all these processes are taken care of within the sports realm.
Well, Sarah, before we let you go, how can we navigate through societal norms that act as a hindrance towards eradicating GBV?
At the moment, we are still tied down to our traditionalist systems where the male is superior to the female. But that being said, we can always decide for ourselves as a society that we will have zero tolerance of all forms of violence, whether it's coercive control, sexual violence, or physical abuse. So as society, we have to come together and make that firm decision to move forward and away from this vice.